Heather.
Yes, Amy.
Did you know that approximately 1 billion plastic toothbrushes end up in U.S. landfills every year?
That's a lot of plastic.
It sure is. Now, if you're like Heather and me, you're always looking for easy ways to reduce your carbon footprint. And when I say easy, I'm not kidding. Here's one of the easiest ways I know. Just switch to a biodegradable toothbrush. Earthmania bamboo toothbrushes are made from premium, biodegradable, and highly sustainable bamboo with densely packed, ultra-soft, BPA-free bristles. So they're safe for everyone, including kids and people with sensitive gums.
With Earthmania, you get a fantastic clean for your entire mouth, and you can feel good about helping out the environment. They come in a 4-pack biodegradable cardboard box, not plastic packaging like most toothbrushes. And just like an old school plastic toothbrush, you should switch out your Earthmania bamboo toothbrush every 3 months. So a 4-pack box will last you an entire year.
Also, did you know that bamboo is naturally antimicrobial? So a bamboo brush is less likely to harbor germs and mold like their plastic counterparts.
I'm sold. I can't think of a reason not to switch to Earthmania.
Same. And for our Casting Notice listeners, Earthmania has a deal. And who doesn't love a deal?
I love a deal.
Yeah, go to earthmania.com and enter the code CastingNotice at checkout for 20% off your entire order. That's www.earthmania.com, discount code, which is 2 words, Casting Notice.
Earthmania premium bamboo toothbrushes. Love the earth, love your smile.
If you love stand-up comedy, you know who Wendy Liebman is. She has her own Showtime special. She was on America's Got Talent. Every late-night host has brought her on to perform. And she has a TED Talk. This woman's amazing, and I'm so excited to have you hear our interview with her.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Casting Notice Podcast. I'm Amy.
I'm Heather.
We're very awkward at starting this podcast. And today we have a really super special guest on. She's one of my favorite people on the whole planet. She's my adoptive Jewish mother. And we've known each other for many years. And I'm sure you have seen her on TV at some point. She's been all over the place as a comedian for many years. Many
I'm old.
years. Welcome to the podcast, the amazing Wendy Liebman. Yay!
Thank you. You're one of my favorite people too. And Heather, I know that you said we met before. Tell me where we met before.
At Flappers, I think you were actually doing a drop-in to a show because you weren't on the original list of performers. And we met backstage in the green room. And I was like, oh, it's Wendy Liebman.
Oh,
Don't worry.
yes,
You don't have to remember
I do
me.
remember. I do remember. And it's so nice to see you again. And I followed you back on the Instagram.
on the Insta that all the kids are on.
Instagram. And how do you know each other?
We don't. We
Well,
randomly pass by.
similarly-
No.
Similarly, we met once and then never talked again. And then we're like, we should do a podcast. Kind of in a roundabout way, we met through comedy, even though we ended up not doing comedy together. We met and Heather was putting together a show there was an Asian comedy festival and she wanted to put together a show of these 3 Asian moms, me, her, and this other woman. And it was right during pandemic craze. Yeah. And it just didn't come together, and we decided to bail because it was at that point where we were like, are we going to die if we do this festival? It was that point of the pandemic.
We would have died, but not from
like
COVID. We would have died from the festival.
I think the festival might have killed us. Yes, for sure.
I remember in February of 2020 going to the DMV to renew my license, and there was a woman wearing a whole shield, like a plastic shield, and I thought, wow, she's taking this seriously. Like nobody was wearing a mask yet.
Yeah.
And then the next day, the shit hit the fan, and I thought, she's prophetic. And I don't need my license because I'm not going to be driving for 3 years.
Aubrey and I, kind of at a similar time it was pre-pandemic, but right before anyone knew there was actually a pandemic. And it had just barely been mentioned in the news a couple times that there was something happening in Asia, right? Nobody knew anything about anything. And we were in Target by our house. And ironically, it was an Asian woman, but an older Asian woman was in the Target and just started flipping out because a man was there with a little chihuahua, and the chihuahua pooped on the floor of Target. And he was like trying to be responsible, and he was trying to get an employee to get some cleanser, and so he could clean it up. And she went bananas. She was like, You're going to kill all of us. You're going to kill all of us. Don't you understand? She was like a prophet. She was like, this is what's going to happen. We're all going to die. We're all going to be sick because of this, because it's, and then she was saying, it is the animals. Animals are going to kill us. It is, and I mean, she literally was screaming.
Oh my gosh.
And people were stopping. I have a video of it in my phone somewhere. And she's like, it's the animals, the animals. And I'm like, she was right.
I love Target.
I do too.
Can I swear? I freaking love
Yes, fuck it
Target.
up,
I
girl.
even buy stuff online from Target.
Heck yeah.
Sorry, Amazon. I'm so lazy. I will buy stuff online from Target.
I'll be honest though, I haven't stepped into a Target in months.
Heather's in Las Vegas, by the way.
So you're in Vegas?
I am. My husband's company sent him here during the pandemic. It was great. And everybody here hates Californians. So I always have to tell people, he came for work. And they're like, oh, okay.
Right,
fine.
right.
You're not one of those.
So do you gamble
No, God, I'm
Vegas?
too cheap.
Okay.
And I did gamble for the first time when some friends came recently, and I put $20 in a machine. I had lost 5, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Next roll, I'm going to cash out, and I got the bonus round, and I ended up winning $100. And I was like, that's it. I'm done.
That is so fun. I know. I once won a lot of money on a slot machine.
Ooh.
Yes, and
What was your wager?
I wagered 3 quarters,
Oh, that's nice. That's a good one.
and I got $10,000.
Oh my God.
Stop.
That's a lot of money.
But I had to give half to the government,
Sure.
and it was
There
right
comes-
after 9/11, so I didn't work for a while. So it all evened out.
Yeah.
But
true.
but now, yeah, so it was nothing basically, and I put that much back. So, no, I don't gamble anymore. But there is a lure. Once you win, it's like that could happen again.
Well, yeah.
How they hook you.
Got the draw. What
I
was the
mean,
machine? Do you remember what it was?
It
Like the
was one
game?
of those machine. I don't. It was a video poker machine, but it had
Oh.
an extra thing where 3 wheels went around. And I have to tell you that as the 3 wheels were going around, I knew it was going to happen. Like I
Really?
can't explain it. Yes, and I don't believe in psychics, although I do have one psychic story that's pretty freaky. But there have been other times in my life, Amy knows I was hit by a car, and as it was happening, I also felt like I know this is happening right now. Like
Oh my gosh.
just I know. But my
Like you were a
one
step ahead
psychic
of yourself.
yeah. My one psychic story, my husband and I have gone just for fun. Like if we had free time before a dinner reservation, there was a psychic next door. And so we just walked in there. And the woman actually said to us, I said, how did you get into this business? And she was an older woman. And she said, well, I didn't plan for my future. And I thought that was the funniest thing I had ever heard from a psychic. And my husband and I just look at each other like, we are out of here. But
Okay.
one time we went to this guy just for fun, entertainment. And he goes, he gives me like the regular rigmarole. If I say Jane, I might mean John and blah, 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 fishing as they do. And I didn't even ask if either of you believe in psychics or whatever. But
I believe in
yeah,
nothing.
right? Okay.
Not even myself. Yeah.
Get this. So I'm standing up to leave, and the guy goes, wait a minute. Who's Lily? You're not paying enough attention to her. And I had been writing a book called Swear on Lily.
Oh.
And the hair stood up on the back of my neck. And I'm like, he's right. I haven't put enough time into this. And so that's the only time I ever was like, there might be something. Because there's no way he could have known that I was writing a book called Swear on Lily. No way.
I also had like one incident that was like, oh, okay, all right. This was years ago back in Minneapolis before I moved here to California. And it was a woman who was the longtime girlfriend of a guy who was the tech guy for the improv group that I was in. Yes, Heather, when I used to do improv. Heather does improv, and I hate improv now, but I love Heather. But this woman, we had some shows, so he was there setting up the tech, and I got there a little early, and I had never met her before, but, you know, like, we all kind of knew, like, oh, yeah, did you know that so-and-so's girlfriend is a psychic? We all knew that about her. So, but I had never met her, and I saw her sitting there, and I was like, oh, that must be his girlfriend, because he was the only person there. And so I went up to introduce myself, and I said, oh, hi, my name's Amy, and I've heard a lot about you. And she just, very calmly, she turned to me, and she put her hand on my elbow really gently. She was sitting at a chair, and I was standing. And then she said to me, do you have a background in education? And I said, yes, my degree is actually in music education. And she goes, you're a natural teacher. You should continue to teach. I think there are going to be opportunities for you. And literally just like 2 days earlier, the improv school had asked me to teach. And I was trying to decide whether I wanted to teach classes or not. And I was like, all right, freak show. Thank you. And I did end up teaching.
So did you? You did?
I did. Not because she said to, but like, yeah, I mean, and like, who knows, whatever. I mean, lots of people have degrees in education. I don't know. But
that jogged my memory, Amy, because I was once at a restaurant in Seattle. I was working at the Improv in Seattle, and a friend of mine from college took me out to dinner. It was called the Gravity Bar, and this woman was walking around. She said, I'll read your palms for $10. At that time, we had disposable income. And she goes to my friend, you don't have any kids, except you have hundreds of kids. You're a teacher. And she said, no, I work in corporate America. My mom's a teacher. My aunt's a teacher. Anyway, cut to, my friend then went back to school, became a teacher, then taught teachers, like then became a teacher's teacher.
How to be psychic.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And then she never had kids of her own. So I don't know if it was that she put that seed in my friend's mind. And for me, she said I had 3 forms of creativity. She didn't know me. And one of them was going to make me really rich. So she was a liar. And but she said I had 2 sons. And I have 2 stepsons. So I always felt there was something a little prophetic. And she also told me that if I didn't eat better, that all my energy came from anxiety, and that I needed to take better care of myself nutritionally. And so I don't know if she was psychic, but she was informative.
Well, and then, okay, so this is a nice segue because you mentioned your stepsons. That's one thing I told Heather that I thought we should chat about a little bit is because, so Wendy, I don't even know if I told you, our podcast, the Casting Notice podcast, is mainly when it comes down to it about identity. We talk a lot about identity, and Heather and I share a lot of interesting things like that kind of cross over in our identities, and then also like super, super different. And but one of the things that we have in common is that we're moms, but we're like very different moms. Like we've come to motherhood in different ways, and so have you, because I think of you as a mom. Yes. I mean, you raised those boys. Mm-hmm. And so I think that like the 3 of us as 3 very different types of moms, and like what that word even means, like I would love to just chat about that a little bit, because I feel like you do a lot of like comedy interviews and podcasts and stuff, and you probably don't talk much about being a mom. So now let's do it.
Well, I've been called a mother. Well, I was 38 when I met my husband, and he had 2 kids. They were 4 and 8, and suddenly I was a half-time stepmom. It was 50-50 custody. And then 2 months later, somehow it was 90-10 custody, and we had them 90% of the time, and which is unusual. And I was open to it, but it really did change everything. And they had like a babysitter that was there a lot, or a nanny. But then when she left, then I became their full-time stepmom, basically, and I stopped going on the road a lot. And now there are 28 and 32, if my math is right. I'm not sure. But yeah, I never saw myself, I never wanted to have kids. I never wanted to be pregnant. I didn't want to have to share my food with anyone. I say I would have been an overprotective mom. I never let them outside of my body, which is basically what I did with my own kids. It just wasn't, I didn't think it was in my cards. But I'm so glad that this happened. Like, it kind of makes me believe in God, in that they're the perfect people to bring out the best in me. They also have brought out the worst in me, you know,
Sure.
when they were little. But no, but I had to learn. And so they taught me patience and acceptance, and they helped me grow as a person. So how old are your kids, Heather?
They're now 16, almost 18, 19, almost turning to those ages. But it's very similar because I adopted older children. So we got them when they were 6, 8, and 9. So I relate very much to suddenly becoming a stepmother to two people who pretty much have their personalities kind of baked in. There's no
Right.
discovering of it. It's like they are who they're going to be. They're just going to get bigger and older versions of that. And it's
Right.
I wonder if you have the same experiences after kind of that nice little grace period. The personality conflicts start to show, and it
Were
becomes
they
challenging.
siblings?
They
Were
are.
they
They're a sibling
siblings?
set of 3. Yeah. I always joke, Mom has 7 kids, but I only have the matching set because they all have the same dad. So, but
Wow.
yeah,
Wait, there are seven
yeah,
kids in their family, or
yes.
in your
And my
family.
3, no,
But they're
in
the
their
three that
family,
have the
but
same dad.
they're the only ones. All of Mom's
Oh,
other
okay.
kids have different dads.
Wow. And
Yeah.
that's that's an incredible story. I hope there are articles written about you.
Well, true crime articles.
I was gonna say, like, who murders who?
Well, I remember one time, like recently, my daughter was watching something about an adoptive mom who murdered her kids. And she's like, Mom, did you ever think about murdering us?
Oh
I'm like, I
my
had it
God.
planned to a T. I knew I knew what I was gonna.
Oh, the fantasy.
Yes, I said I knew how I was gonna do it.
Nurture really does play a role. And I felt that way with my stepsons, that my 5-year-olds or 4-year-old, I was able to reach more because the 8-year-old already had a personality. Or not that the 4-year-old didn't have a personality, but he was more open to connecting. I mean, not to compare your kids with dogs, but I we adopted 2
We're gonna
dogs.
talk about your dogs too. Yes.
Well, is this a good segue, or
Yeah.
Yes, because well, you want to know why I really want to talk about your dogs, because I
Yeah.
got a little obsessed with wanting to adopt a Jindo meat dog,
I wanted Jindo.
and I was like, don't do it, and because Wendy, like, not only you, but I know another person too who's kind of struggled with a Jindo dog that was rescued from meat market, and I know like they've not been like the easiest dogs to adopt as pets.
I love them
Yes.
so much. I love them so much. They run my life, though. Like, they are not siblings, but they were adopted together. We were just going to get one, and then we went to this rescue place, and there were only 2 dogs there. And we were like, we can't leave this little one. So we took them both, which is not a good idea, Heather. If you're thinking of adopting one, just get one. Honestly think one of them is on the spectrum, and I don't say that I don't say that comedically. I've asked my vet, is that possible? And he said yes, because if she was taken from her mother too early and locked in a room, she doesn't have she's missing something. And every once in a while I'll see her just staring at the wall, licking a light post. I know. And recently when it rained, she dug out under the fence because there was a lot of mud and she was able to dig. And we saw her frolicking in the neighborhood. It took us an hour and a half to get her in. And people are like, oh, well, Jindos are notorious for finding their owners. Like there's a famous story about one who traveled 2,000 miles to get back to its owner. And I'm like, yeah, they're notorious for getting back to their owner, but I think they're probably trying to get back to Korea. Like they're not going to come back to me. They're trying to get home. But I can't imagine my life without them. In the same way that I believed in the divine, I believe that they're in my life for whatever reasons. And yeah, so I actually would say to get one, Heather. You're used to dealing with...
That's a vote for yes.
I'd say don't. But
Well, they're hunters. So you have to have like a place for them to run around.
she also has
And
cats, Wendy.
That's okay.
Well, if you don't, if your cats are
they'll
delicious,
probably hunt.
yeah.
They'll hunt the cats. Well,
I
maybe
mean,
if
it's
you
not
can
impossible
socialize
to
them.
integrate that like mixed family, but it could be tough. It could be tough.
I have to ask you a bit about like starting out in comedy. So I started late. I didn't really get into it until my late 30s. It was, the joke. It was my therapy for dealing with having these adopted kids and sort of expressing a lot of what I was going through. But even, as a 30-something Asian woman, I was like, man, this industry really sucks. It's a lot of awful white men who book each other on these awful shows. And then they'll throw me in as the token at the end, and it's horrible. I can't imagine, back in the 90s when you're doing this, it feels like it must have been even harder back then.
I started in Boston, Heather, and first of all, I can't wait to watch your stand-up now. I can't wait. I think I had blinders on. I didn't ever think of myself as a female stand-up. I just thought of myself as a stand-up. I think being female actually worked to my advantage because they were looking for that token. And so it didn't bother me that I was thrown on at the end or added because I was added. So I worked a lot. I had a day job and a night job. I performed as much as humanly possible. But I think because I never thought of myself as a female stand-up, it was easier in that aspect. But I know what you mean because I see it now. I see...
Well, I'm curious. I don't mean to like cut you off, but I'm really curious, like your thoughts on performing now, even like just going around to local clubs and stuff, when like being the older person in the green room, right? Because I feel that, and I'm a little bit younger than you. Like, it's so weird to go into rooms and feel like, oh my God, everybody here is young enough to be my child. And they all think they're so much fucking funnier than me, and they're not.
That's really interesting. In the same way that I didn't feel like a female stand-up, I don't think of myself as an old stand-up. I think of myself as a stand-up. And I guess I recently put somebody on one. I host a show and produce a show at Flappers called Locally Grown Comedy. And a friend of mine asked if I would put her son on. He just started out. He's in his 20s. And I gave him a few minutes. And he's so adorable, Jack Shaw. And I guess I did feel like his mother, but I liked seeing the enthusiasm. I didn't get that he thought he was funnier than everybody else in the room. I felt like he was excited about being there and looking forward to his long career. Yeah, so like Heather, who started her comedy career in her 30s, I want to start my acting career in my 60s.
Do it.
For sure.
We talk about that
Maybe.
here. There's no timeline, you start when you start, and you just do what you need to do.
I feel the same way. Like, there's no, it's never too late to do anything unless you're dead and then you won't know.
Do you do this thing? I'm curious. I'm curious from both of you because I've talked to other performers who do this too. And I dread the show, whether it's a 10-minute set or a headliner hour, right? I hate, think about it and I dread it and I'm driving there and I hate it and I don't want to do it. And I drag my feet getting ready before. And then right when I'm about to walk on stage, I feel really jazzed to do it. But up until that moment, I just want to lay in bed and do nothing. I mean, I'll dread it all day. And then, when I'm just standing off to the side, about to go on stage, I'm like, yeah, I'm so excited. And then
What about when
the
you're
set
on
doesn't go-
stage?
when I'm on stage, I love it. Even if it doesn't go super well, I'm glad that I did it. I always leave there feeling really satisfied and happy that I did it and thinking about my set and what I can change and improving and stuff. It's usually a really good experience.
I once read that Whoopi Goldberg, right before she went on stage once, thought, why didn't I just become a kindergarten teacher? And I've often thought that myself, why wasn't I just a really funny real estate agent or the most hilarious advertising executive? Why did we pick this where it's all on us? So I do think that's part of the nurture, not the nature. I think the nature is that we are innately funny people. I don't know if it's genetic or whatever, but the nurture is something that we feel like we have to stand out. And so I think that dread, I'm not a psychologist, although I was going to be a therapist and I've been in therapy my entire life. But, and I want to play one on TV. But I think the dread comes from having to do it to stand out. Not an anger, but a resentment that why do I have to do this to get what I need to feel good?
It's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of insight. I agree with a lot of that. And another thing too that really, because I kind of really took the big step back from stand-up during the pandemic because we were all forced to, right? And then when things started to open back up, all of my comic friends were chomping at the bit to get back out there and start talking into a Jeremy microphone. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to wait a little while longer. And get onto airplanes and stuff. I'm like, I don't know, whatever. I'll go back when I feel like it. And I did. It just took me a lot longer. But I also am kind of having that forced break from it, though. I've explained this, the way I've described it to a lot of people is it kind of felt like I left an abusive boyfriend. And when you get out of a bad relationship and then you've had that distance from it and you're able to digest a little bit and you're like, wow, why did I keep going back to that asshole for 20 whatever years? It's not paying me any more money. He's not giving me any more respect. It's not getting any easier for me to get the work. Why am I
It's a
doing this?
habit. It's a bad habit.
It is a bad habit, but I also started to recognize too, how we always talk about how comedians are they're all dysfunctional and they all just want attention and blah 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 blah. And I started to question how much of my stand up was coming from a place of look at me, right? And then I don't know. I maybe I just overanalyzed it all too much, but I just wasn't in a big hurry to get back to it. So much of it felt toxic to me. And I just was happy to have the break from it. Well, okay, so Wendy and I have not performed. We haven't performed together in quite a while now, but we had performed together a lot, like in the past. And like some of my favorite memories of doing comedy are with Wendy because she's fun to travel with. It's fun to watch her sleep on the plane because she's a professional airplane sleeper. And she's always carrying like a sleeve of Ritz.
I always have my crackers. But identity is a really interesting topic, you guys. And it changes. My identity has changed over my life. You know, I became a stepmom. That was a new identity.
I have a question for you. How would you say, because for those of you listening who don't know, Wendy was hit by a car. She mentioned it briefly, and it was obviously like a life-changing incident. Would you say that that's changed your identity at all? Because, I mean, you were in bed for over a year, right? I mean, crazy.
Right. Has it changed my identity? First of all, it wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was bad, but there were so many good things that came out of it that I can't say it was all bad because I felt so loved. And, you know, they say your bone has to knit itself back together. And I felt like that's what was happening with all my friendships. I was knitting them. I know, it was really, and you baked me cookies, Amy.
I did.
With erythritol. And has changed my identity. There are times when I don't want to get out of bed and I think to myself, well, I wasn't able to get out of bed for so long. So in that way, and it's not like I just want to stay in bed and because I'm depressed or anything. It's just like I feel lazy. And so I think, well, I won't always have this opportunity. I should take this opportunity to get out of bed when I can. So in that way, it's changed my identity. But I also feel like I was 3 feet away from possibly being run over by this car instead of just hit. And so I guess I feel closer to mortality. And I have that consciousness now that don't take anything for granted. So in that way, it's changed my identity.
That is crazy that you've married into Disney legacy, though. Because your
I
husband
did. I married into Disney Legacy.
Yeah.
So he's the son of which brother of the? I saw The Boys years ago.
You did? So he's the son of Robert Sherman, one of the Sherman brothers, who has since passed. Richard is still alive, my uncle-in-law. And my husband one day he came home from school and his dad said, "What did you do today?" And he said, "I got a vaccine for polio." And his father said, "You let them give you a shot at school?" And he said, "No, they put the medicine on a spoon and on a sugar cube." And my father-in-law came up with the lyric, "Spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down." So that was, my husband inspired that song, and that's his legacy. But he's also a writer and producer and composer himself. So he is...
He wrote the Boy Meets World, didn't he?
He was one of the producers on Boy Meets World. Was that that's your... You
That's
grew
my
up
era,
watching
yes.
that.
Great show.
It's a great show. So
You know.
I guess there's a podcast called Pod Meets World, and
wow.
the three Topanga, Topanga,
Ryder Strong, I think, isn't?
Ryder Strong and Will Friedle, and Danielle Fishel, they do it. And I guess yesterday they talked about the episode that my husband wrote called Dangerous Secrets, which was about the girl who was being abused by physically. It's not sexually, but physically. And so he still hears today how that changed people's lives. So my husband feels like he's made some impacts on your generation, I guess. Because people didn't, yeah, it's like a dangerous secret. So, but yeah, I met my husband because he was hired to write a sitcom for me, and it didn't work, but it was love at first sight, and now I'm not so sure.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. He's amazing.
He's lovely, and Wendy's sons are lovely human beings. And
Thank you. And I just started, or I'm just about to start my own podcast, you guys.
yes,
Yes.
let's segue into that.
I
because we
never, I
definitely
never
want to
saw
know about it.
myself, never saw myself doing one because what you do is really, it's a lot of work, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's a
We
lot
don't
of
know
work.
what we're doing.
So when I moved into this house 8 years ago, I thought I never want to leave home. And I just want to do a talk show at my kitchen table at midnight. And I would
love it.
send a car for people and have them come over at midnight. I mean, this was a fantasy, right? And it was called Midnight Snack. Well, this has morphed into a podcast, just audio. And the name Midnight Snack has already been taken. A lot of podcast names are already taken. So my show is called Who's Up with Wendy and Nancy. And my friend Nancy Cohen, who's a writer, she wrote on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And she also wrote on, I want to say, Kate and Allie.
I love
And when I
that
was thinking
show.
about,
shows I loved,
do
yeah.
you? When I was thinking about who I wanted to talk to for this amount of time, I just thought, oh, that would be interesting because she's not a comedian, she's a writer, and it just seemed to click. So we've been planning and figuring out what our podcast will be. It's going to be snack size, half hour, right before you go to bed. Although nobody else wants to do it right before they go to bed. We have to pretend. So, but we'll be transparent. We'll say this is not about, yeah, anyway.
We'll suspend disbelief
So,
and pretend you guys are in your jammies at your table.
eating a
having a
snack,
nice snack.
having
eating
a sleeve of
crackers.
Ritz.
One time you brought me crackers for my birthday.
I did.
You did. And Aubrey gave them to me.
That's right.
And now you also do a food podcast, don't you? Food Mania?
Well, no, Aubrey and I have had that. It's a YouTube channel. We've had it for a
YouTube,
long
right.
time, since she was like 7 or 8 years old, I think. And we kind of let it go for a while because she got like too cool for it, you know? But every once in a while, we still love it though. And it's funny, like people still watch the videos and we still keep getting new subscriptions and viewers. So every once in a while,
Do they
we'll
send you
still do one.
products? Do they send
used
you
to.
the food?
Now that we're not as active, they don't. But when we were posting videos every week, we had an email address for it, and we would say, if you're interested in sending us foods that you want us to try, you know, send an email. And people from all over the world have sent us snacks and treats to try on our video channel, and nobody poisoned us. We had a rule that it had to be like store-bought packaged food, like don't send us your grandma's baklava wrapped in
Homemade,
tinfoil.
right.
Yeah. Like, but yeah,
You will be
we've tried
poisoned
lots of
by
stuff.
the hay, though.
It
But
is
one
killing
time
me. I
you
can't
had,
breathe.
like popcorn or cookies that were flavored with something weird, like something that
We
you
had
would find
chips
at the
with bugs in
dollar
them.
store.
Oh,
Oh yeah, we've tried all kinds of stuff. So we've done
Chips
tons
with
of videos.
bugs?
Yeah, and we bought them just at Ralph's or something. We saw them
On
like, oh, we gotta
purpose?
try these. And yeah, because you know bugs are eaten around the world really commonly as a source of nutrition.
Like
right?
crickets.
Yes,
Right.
all kinds of bugs, grubs, and so it was just they were being marketed as protein chips, and we're like, oh, we got to try it. We did not like them, and the company was like, oh, well, sorry. They saw the video and they weren't happy that we kind of poo-pooed their product. It tasted like sawdust. That wasn't good.
Literally.
were they the ones that were on Shark Tank, like promoting how like great their stuff was?
I
and-
don't remember.
Oh,
But they
I
were
saw
like just at
that,
the regular
Heather.
grocery
Yeah.
store.
And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I do eat snails. I think they're delicious. But
I had snails for the first time a couple years ago. I was like,
you didn't love it?
at a French
Oh,
restaurant. Yeah.
well, there's in a lot of Korean, like the stews and soups when you go to Korea, they supplement it with the rice snails that you find. And they're just like mussels. Like if you like clams and stuff.
Snails.
Yeah, like in the rice
I
patties. They have little
I
snails.
ordered snails once, but it took too long to get to my table.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Can I say, Wendy, your style of comedy is my husband's favorite. Like he loves your wordplay, he loves your delivery. You are
Thanks,
like
Em.
he thinks it's the most clever because you'll say something and then you'll do that little tag at the end that's so almost subtle at first, and then you're like, no, wait a minute, that was such a great
The classic
tag.
Wendy Liebman
Yeah.
misdirection. Well, and I will
so
say this
good.
too, and I'm not just saying this because we've been friends for so long, but you are one of the, you know how there are certain comedians that you just, you get to know them personally, but also like certain comedians, you could watch them, like them do the same act over and over and over and never get tired of it. Like you're one of those comedians for me. Because I've watched you perform many times over the years.
Yeah, I
but
have been doing
I
the
could
same
just
act
watch you
over and
over and over and over, even if you're
But
doing the same notes.
no, but I know what you mean. Like
even though I
I
know
feel
what's
that
coming.
way about Brian Kiley. Right. I feel that way about Brian Kiley. I could see him. He's my favorite stand-up. I could watch
Okay, I have to watch more of his stuff. All right. Brian Kiley.
Brian Kiley. Oh,
Yeah.
I started with him in Boston, and
Oh my gosh.
I love
he's
that.
just my favorite. Your husband would love him if he likes my sense of humor.
I'm sure he does. He's
Okay.
better with comedian names, and I will remember specific bits better. He'll be like, but he remembers, like he watches so much comedy, he loves it. So that's why he was actually very supportive of me getting into stand up, because he loves stand up comedy, but not to
Well,
perform
I
it. He hates the idea.
Okay, so he hates the idea of performing himself. Yeah, my husband's the funniest person I know, but the thought of him ever getting on stage is never going to happen. Although he does 5 minutes for me every night while I'm sitting on the couch. So it's an audience of one. I'm very lucky. I should write it down.
Oh, we have to
That's
remember to
awesome.
ask you. So we like
Yes.
to ask all of our guests because Casting Notice Podcast, we're all about identity and how we see ourselves, and also realizing that the way we see ourselves isn't always how others see us. If you could pick someone to play you in the movie of Wendy Liebman's life, who would it be? And it can be, you can go wild. Like there are no restrictions. It can be a real actor. It can be someone living. It can be someone dead. It could be someone who's a different race, a different gender. It can be a cartoon character. Anybody you want that you think embodies your identity and your personality.
I think I would like it to be me. No, but I think Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Oh,
I'd like her to play me.
Great.
The other person, I don't know her name, but you said it. She could be a different race. The woman who's in The Bear, who just won.
Oh, Ao. I don't know how to
Peter.
pronounce her name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Her,
think she could
yes.
play. I think she should play me, a younger me. And then one time I was a long time ago. People thought I looked like Heidi Fleiss, the Beverly Hills Madam, and so you don't know her, Amy, do you? Or
Not
oh
personally,
yeah,
no.
maybe you do.
I
You know of
not
her.
personally, but
You
we
of
know
her.
of her. Yes.
We know of, yes.
Right. So one time I was in Santa Monica, and I walked into a store, and it was Heidi Fleiss's lingerie store.
Oh,
And I was buying like pajamas for a friend, and this woman stands up from behind the counter, like she was down there looking for a box, and she stands up, and it's Heidi Fleiss. And I go, oh my God. I go, some of my friends think that I could play you in the made-for-TV movie. And I said, but I don't think I'm pretty enough. And she goes, you're pretty enough. I don't know what that means. But
What's your number?
so
I got
yeah.
some guys who might be interested.
I literally was
So
worried you were going to say, she said you're not. And I was like, oh, no.
I know. But okay, so one time I had two auditions one day, and one was for a commercial and one was for a sitcom. And I was exhausted. I'd been on the road and I just got back. And I said to my manager, I can only go to one. I can't go to two. And he goes, you know what? Don't go to the sitcom because the sitcom's not going to go. And it was for Friends.
Oh,
Stop
no.
it.
No, I swear. And I think it was for the Courtney Cox character.
Oh, yeah, the Bruno
yeah.
Well, you know.
Yeah. Did you fire your manager after?
Well, they're not my manager now, but no, I didn't fire them. And I didn't get the commercial either. I had to dance with a dishwasher. You know what's interesting to me is to see the commercials that I didn't get. There was one commercial where this woman wakes up in bed and Kelly Clarkson is there. It was for Wayfair. And I saw what they were going for, and it wasn't me. You know, it just wasn't me. So I was never going to get that commercial. What do you go out for, Heather?
Ethnically ambiguous, plus size. But I tell Amy the last few commercials that I've gone out for, what ends up getting booked is an African-American male. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing anymore in this industry.
I get that too, because when you're a person of color, a lot of times they're just filling those smaller roles with people of color so that they can say they have diversity in their casting.
Diversity.
And so it will say like, submit all ethnicities. And sometimes it's across genders too, where it's like, okay, these are cops. So they're like, submit anyone who could be a cop, which is if you're walking and living and breathing, you could be a cop. And so, yeah, you go in the room and it's like, well, this is when things were in person, but even now it's like you're going up against men, women, Latino people, Asian people, Black people, white people. And so, yeah, a lot of the things I haven't booked went to Black men.
Anyway, I hope I outlive people and not, I don't want anybody to pass away, but maybe if I persist.
Just whittle down the competition, right? Just a little bit.
Right. And really, I just want to be a therapist on TV.
You should do it. You should start just your own little sketch thing on YouTube or TikTok and
right?
Just do it.
Okay.
Just do it.
I mean, I do find in life that you have to make your own opportunities.
Absolutely.
That you can't wait. So you'll be my first patient, Heather?
100%. 100% I will be there. But I absolutely believe in that because when I first started out in stand-up, I could not get booked that often. And I said, why don't I just start my own stand-up show? And so I found a restaurant that agreed to let me do a show once a month there. And I started booking and doing all of this stuff. And suddenly when you have a show to book, people will book you on their show and, share you back and forth. And I just, when I wanted to do more improv, I just got a team and I started my own improv show at an ice cream parlor. I just don't believe in waiting around for somebody to give me the opportunity. I know.
And the ice cream, and you get to eat ice cream.
Our tagline for the show is 2 scoops minimum. Because
I love that.
It's actually
what's the name of your comedy troupe?
The show is all under Comedy a la carte, and we run a whole bunch of shows. We've had a little pause, but we're coming back with 2 improv shows this year. And every show has its own little theme. Extreme Prov, one of the shows that's coming back, is all the gross, dirty, and painful improv games out there. So we do that show, and we have, Split Checks, which was a short form and long form show with stand-up comedy. We just did what we wanted. I just didn't believe in waiting, to hope to get booked or hope to get cast. And I'm trying to take that mindset to other places as well, but I don't know, I'm a little lazy too, so.
I love that though. And, I tell people who ask me for advice if they're starting out, neither of you is starting out, but I would tell people perform as much as possible because nothing replaces experience. And if you can't find a place to perform, create your own place. And that's what you did.
Absolutely. And it's, it's a little scary, but it's surprisingly not that hard to find places willing to let you pop in a little location with a couple speakers and a microphone.
Right.
It just takes some gumption and some willingness to
Gumption.
do a little.
Yes, to that word.
Yeah. It's a good word. That's a
Old-fashioned
Scrabble
gumption.
word.
I do all the New York Times games too. I
You're
play
like the
Wordle. I
best.
play Connections.
That's- I don't
Connections
know
is
that
my
right
new
now.
favorite, right?
Oh,
Oh, the one
Connections
that New York
is
Times one?
mm-hmm.
Yes.
With the 16
yes.
words, and you got to figure it out.
I was playing it at 3:00 this morning when I was all coked out on Allegra D. And I couldn't sleep.
I can usually get 1 or 2 connections and then sometimes 3. I can never get the 4th, even though that's the default if
yeah,
I've
that's
gotten
always
the
like
first
the hardest
3.
one. You can't. Oh,
But I love that. I love that. And then I also play one from Huffington Post that's a pyramid with words in it that you have to. I'm a sucker for like Sudoku, and I love.
me too.
I spend a lot. I spend a lot of time alone
I do too.
with my phone.
I always have to play spelling bee and make sure I get a genius level every day.
Me too.
It's the best.
But I cheat in that I look on hints and then I look on the
Community notes.
Yes, community notes. But I have to get
one?
genius before I go to sleep.
Spelling
Bee.
bee. So my rule is I have to get all the way. I have to be able to guess all the words all the way. Is it good? It's the third to the highest. It's not genius.
I think it's great.
Great. Yeah. So I
Right,
have to get
great.
there, and I refuse to look at any hints until I get to that level. Like I don't know. This is so arbitrary, but I'm like, no, I have to do it. I have to.
I'm the same way.
See?
But I'm the same way, Heather.
I'm glad to know I'm not alone.
We're not so different.
No, it's good to know that we are. There are other people who are just as neurotic on this planet.
And I have to do it right at midnight. Like I have to do it before I go
Really?
to sleep. Yeah.
Oh, how funny!
Oh yeah, I always play everything before I go to sleep. I actually do you play the mini word crossword?
Crossword.
So
Yeah.
I have 2 other friends, and this is our 3rd year now. We keep a running tally of who's the fastest, and every night we have a little group chain text where we text our scores, and then we tally. You get a point for each time that you were the fastest, and if you
Every
tied,
night.
then you each get a point. Okay, and this is the 3rd year in the row I am losing miserably. They're so fucking fast, man. I think it's
What's your
great to have
fastest time,
friends
Amy?
who are smarter than you. I think my best time so far has been like 12 seconds or 16 seconds, something like that, 14, somewhere in that range.
That's good. Yeah.
But I mean, that
I
was
don't
like an
time
easier
myself
puzzle.
on that game.
Oh, we go for speed.
I time myself on Sudoku, but not on the crossword. But it's better to play with people who are better because like for Words with Friends, I've played with some people that kill me every time, but I've gotten better.
Yeah, it
and they've
raises the
said
bar.
to me, "Oh my God, you're killing it now," because I want to beat them. I'm competitive.
And now you know those good like QI key. You're like, I know where to drop that sucker.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Or Zah.
But VU works as well, but it doesn't work. But I tried to play like a real game of Scrabble recently, and somebody looked up VU, and it's not in the dictionary. But it works
some
on
of those
Words
words
with
are
Friends.
janky.
Yeah.
Well, I think that Scrabble can sit down because I'm going to go by Words with Friends rules. You know, that came out as a big conflict recently. Uno said, you're not allowed to play a reverse on top of a reverse.
Oh, come on.
And people are like, sit down, Uno. We've got this. You don't need your help anymore. And I'm like,
You're
absolutely.
talking a
we can
different
play.
language. I don't know what that means.
Oh, on Uno?
yeah.
There's like a reverse card.
Where it
And they're
changes the
saying
direction of the play.
The direction? Uno says you can't. So the idea is you have to match either what's on the face value of the card, the number, or what we thought was reverse or skip, or you have to match the color. And Uno came out and said, no, you can't put a reverse on a reverse.
Uno.
And I'm like, that's not right. That goes against the whole gameplay.
That's like Monopoly. Do you play the pot in the center of Monopoly? Like when
Heck
you have
yes.
to pay a fee, you put the money in, and then right? But Monopoly says
But
that
you're
is
not
not
supposed
part
to.
of the game. That is not an official Monopoly thing. Well, fuck that shit.
Did you ever so when I used to play Monopoly with my kids, I would guilt them into like selling me their properties. And
She's such a
Bobby would be
mean
like,
mom. I
don't
love
sell
it.
them. I know. He's like, don't sell them. He's like, she just wants that so she can build houses. And I'm like, I'm building a life for you. Like you should want
Right.
your mom
I'm
to be
using this
successful.
skill. Right.
Heather's like,
you.
she has the best, like, she once, like, to punish her son, she played his video game for a bunch to fuck it all up.
Yeah, I ruined his score. I made him watch too while I did it.
Because, you know, a lot of those games, like, you're building, right? Like, you're getting higher and higher. So she played his game to make it all bad, and then...
He cried.
Hysterical.
We've been on here a lot.
I had so much fun with you.
We had so much fun chatting with you.
You're like the best person
Thank
ever,
you.
Wendy Liebman.
Oh,
And
I love you so
Mwah,
much. And
mwah.
now I love you, Heather.
Oh, I love you, Wendy. And
Watch for her regular show that she does at Flappers called Locally Grown. And then also watch for her podcast that will be coming out soon.
It's called Who's Up?
We're Up. Who's Up?
Who's Up? With Wendy and Nancy.
Yay. Thank you for being on our show, Wendy Liebman.
Love you.
It's been so fun having you on.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for having me. You both are amazing. And
You're
let's talk
amazing.
again soon. Let's
All
talk
right,
again soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm definitely getting that gin
Bye.
dough. Okay. Bye.
You should. You should. We'll be in touch.
Get that dog.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Man, I just love Wendy so much. You can find her on Instagram at Wendy Liebman. And speaking of social media, you won't want to miss our next episode when we sit down to talk to your Korean dad, the one and only Nick Cho.